So yeah, we had the session, but you know there were really only a couple people there, so I'm happy to go through the video again and answer any questions you might have.
Sure, if you want.
Yeah, are you familiar with SafSour LP 652 or?
I am familiar. Yes, I read your little pamphlets that were provided, and then we've been looking at this as well at our brewery.
Okay, well, I don't even know if you've been using it or reading about it. The video might not even be helpful.
Okay.
It's really brief, just to kind of get the conversation started. So if you have any questions, just feel free to ask.
All right, I will. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll play it just in case. So. Close video. And now the video's gone. I'm like logged in as, I'm going to log out and log back in. Hold on a second.
No problem.
Good grief. Technology is great.
I imagine you guys have had a little bit of a learning curve too with the adaptation this year.
Okay, finally. So I'm logged in as an administrator and
product range
mod
for
Fermentis. SafSour LP 652 is the first bacteria in the Fermentis range and is ideal for production of kettle sour beers. So what is a kettle sour beer? Well, first, while the term kettle sour may be very familiar to some of us and give us a clear impression in our minds of what this beer might taste like, it's not a recognized beer style. Rather, kettle souring is a production method used to acidify unhopped wort using lactic acid producing bacteria. The pH of kettle soured beers is typically between 3 and 3.6 pH. And they're not really the same as traditional mixed fermentation sour beers. Kettle sours are the lactic fermentation occurs on the hot side of the brewery, whereas with traditional mixed fermentation, the lactic fermentation is happening usually along with the alcoholic fermentation on the cold side, in the fermenters, in foeders and barrels, and even in the bottle, and extended aging is usually required. So here at the top of the slide in orange, we look at the basic traditional brewing process. So we have milling, mashing, lautering, boiling where hops are typically added, cooling, then the alcoholic fermentation, maturation, and then packaging. The kettle souring process introduces a lactic fermentation following wort runoff and prior to the boil. Once the wort is collected, it is common practice to bring the wort to a short boil in order to pasteurize and eliminate potential competition from other microorganisms. It's important to note that hops are not added prior to or during the lactic fermentation, as hops inhibit the growth and metabolism of lactic bacteria. Therefore, presence would inhibit the fermentation. Once the wort is sanitized, it is cooled to a temperature that will be optimal for the bacteria strain chosen. And then once sufficiently cooled, the wort is inoculated with lactic acid bacteria and lactic fermentation begins. Lactic fermentation fermentation typically takes from 24 to 36 hours, perhaps up to 48 hours. Depending on the brewery's equipment capabilities, a specific temperature may be maintained during the entire lactic fermentation, or an alternative would be to pitch the wort at the high end of the optimal range for that bacteria, and then allow the lactic fermentation to occur as the wort cools. Either way, once the lactic fermentation is complete, the traditional brewing process resumes with the full boil, hop additions, cooling, alcoholic fermentation with yeast, and finally the maturation and packaging. So why would you choose to produce a kettle sour beer? The benefits, there's a lot of benefits with producing kettle sour beers. For many brewers, kettle souring offers a method for experimenting with bacteria while minimizing the risk of contamination on the cold side of the brewery because the bacteria are inactivated during the boil. With kettle souring, it's very easy to control the process and produce a consistent, repeatable product. And unlike with traditional mixed fermentation beers, there is no extended aging in foeders, barrels, or bottles for extended periods of time. And this quick turnover reduces the overall production cost of a kettle sour, which results in an attractive price point for the consumer. Traditionally produced mixed fermentation beers often cost considerably more than kettle sour beers. Now, kettle sours aren't nearly as complex as traditional sours, but they're typically very clean, very refreshing, and provide an excellent backdrop for fruit additions, flavorings, or the use of bittering and dry hops. They're really kind of a blank canvas for experimentation. And they can really contribute to the overall diversity of flavor experiences offered by a particular brewery. Flavors that often compete with other beverage categories like wine, cocktails, ready-to-drink cocktails, and the flavors of a kettle sour can appeal to people that may not be typical beer consumers. As I mentioned earlier, kettle soured beers are not a style in and of themselves, and beers produced with the kettle sour method generally fall into a broader category of sour beers, including those produced with traditional mixed fermentation. Compared with other beer styles, at least in the US market, sour beers do not represent a significantly large volume, but they are among the top 10 fastest growing styles according to Nielsen Craft Beer Snapshot, released in 2019. The value of sour and American Wild Ale category grew 31% from 2018 to 2019, and they continue to be very popular with consumers. So to offer brewers a new and interesting solution for producing sour beers, Fermentis has released the first bacteria in our range, SafSour LP 652. The LP stands for Lactobacillus plantarum, and it was specifically selected by Fermentis for the production of kettle sour beers. The Fermentis sensory panel noted that beers produced with SafSour LP 652 produced beers with tropical, citrus, and other fruity notes, and were also very refreshing in taste. Being a homofermentative bacteria, SafSour LP 652 produces mainly lactic acid, but also a small amount of acetic acid. And finally, as with most of our brewing yeasts, SafSour LP 652 is certified easy to use and can be pitched directly into prepared wort. Lactic fermentation time with SafSour LP 652 is typically between 24 and 36 hours and tends to produce a soured wort between 3.2 and 3.6 pH. Each package of LP652 contains greater than 3 billion viable cells per gram, and we recommend dosing at about 10 grams per hectoliter. One package of LP652 current format is 100 grams, though larger formats may be available in the future. We do recommend to pitch directly into the cooled wort at a fermentation temperature of around 37 degrees Celsius, plus or minus 3 degrees. And LP652 can simply be stored as you would with any of our SAF yeasts in a cool, dry condition below 4 degrees Celsius. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to learn more about SafSour LP652, please come visit us at the Fermentis virtual booth. All right, so that's a video I recycled from the World Brewing Congress, but for purpose here.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm sure a lot of that was, not new to you, but just kind of gets the conversation started. So.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, we're looking at doing a kettle sour on our main production, so we've been kind of eyeing this and then some of the other ones out on the market.
Okay.
Now, I don't think we've tried a pilot with this variety, so I mean,
okay.
I think it might be worth going that route if we could arrange something that way.
Sure. What kind of size pilot batches do you do?
We do about, I think it was 350 liters the guys are doing.
Oh, okay. Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, most likely what I would do, and I don't know if it would come through BSG or if I'll send it, but we can provide you a sample.
Okay.
And then run your trials, and if you decide you like it, it is available through BSG. So.
Okay, awesome. Now we do use a few of your varieties already. We use the T58 for sure. And I think there's a couple other varieties we're using. I just can't remember the codes right now, but yeah, we do like your products.
Do you do lagers?
Say that again.
Do you do lagers?
We do lagers, we do ales. We do kind of everything.
Okay, you might be using 3470 then, the W3470. Yeah, cool.
Okay.
All right. Some other strains too. Do you have any, questions on using it or?
Yeah, I am a little bit curious on the profile of it. So you guys are saying that it is producing mainly that lactic acid bacteria. So, lactic acid byproduct. So do you find that that's generally where the market's kind of wanting that yeast to be, or is that something you guys just tried out, or just kind of curious?
I think this is a start for us. I mean, I think a lot of at least in the U.S. market, a lot of the kettle sours are that clean lactic flavor.
Yeah.
But we do intend to have some other dry bacteria options in the future.
Okay.
So this is just the first, and I think what's going to be really interesting to me is, maybe once we have 2 or 4, I don't know how many we're going to have, but have some different ones that we can play with, blending them in different proportions and potentially creating more complex flavors.
Okay. That was kind of where I was thinking into.
The main thing is that it's like super sensitive to alpha acids, so there can't be any hop alpha acid present during the lactic fermentation.
Yeah.
I think it's 5 IBU suppresses the souring by like 50%. So
okay, wow, quite significant then, eh? Okay. And are you finding this product? Are people having much success with it in the production level?
So far, it's kind of made a big splash. I've had maybe 10 brewers run trials with it. All the feedback was positive. I had one brewer that thought that it it took longer, but it's hard to say what other things might have been happening in that particular brewery.
True.
But most people are saying that the souring's completed in about 36 to 48 hours. It looks like Tammy has joined us here. I'll activate her mic too, since it's just a couple of us. I know she's tried it recently too.
Oh, okay.
But the sensory feedback has been like, the clean, citrusy lactic, maybe a little bit of a dairy note as well. That was coming from our sensory panel. And I think Tammy got the same kind of result from that. But feedback has been very positive so far. Another interesting thing we're seeing with it, we presented a poster at World Brewing Congress, and we used the LP652 along with a variety of different yeast strains. Some were POF positive, so the phenolic off flavor gene. Some were POF positive and some were POF negative. But it appears that this particular and maybe it would be all lactobacillus, I don't know, but it's suppressing the production of 4-vinyl guaiacol, 4-VG and 4-VG and 4-EG. It's actually suppressing the expression of those notes, so it's preventing that conversion of ferulic acid to those compounds. Which is really interesting, because then you could use a POF positive yeast and not get a phenolic flavor from it. So,
very cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. Hi, Tammy.
Hi. I think I missed most of the video again, but oh well.
It's okay. It was really introductory, just kind of going over the basic characteristics of the product and talking a little bit about sour beers, but. Feel free to make any comments or ask questions.
Well, I mean, I've emailed with you enough to kind of go over the basic info, but my sour is still just kind of sitting in the tank because I'm waiting for some flavoring.
Okay.
But one question I do have is that I know we talked about temperature, and right now it's at about 66 degrees, and I'm still just waiting to add some flavoring, and I don't want to crash it like too soon before I add that flavoring. So I'm wondering if it's okay to just kind of sit for another few days at that temperature.
I mean, I think it would be I think the risk would be, what yeast strain did you use with it?
I think I used US-05.
Okay. So, US-05, all the maltose is going to be gone. Most of the maltotriose is gone. My concern would be is sitting there, the longer it sits there at that temperature, the more time you're allowing for any other contaminant that might be present to take a foothold. But, flavor-wise and gravity-wise, it appears to be complete, would you say?
Yeah.
Okay, and then what type of flavoring are you planning on adding?
It's going to be like a cranberry.
Okay, and you're intending that to ferment as well?
No.
Or
it's just a flavoring, so there shouldn't be any sort of like sugar in there.
Okay, yeah, I think I would probably go ahead and cold crash it and get it off the yeast, just because if the yeast no longer has any carbohydrate to eat and it's sitting there in the tank, the longer you have that contact, the more potential you have for like sulfur or other off notes to develop. So I would probably get it off the yeast and cold crash it at this point and just add your flavoring at the cold temperature. So.
Okay. I did actually remove the yeast once or twice already after it looked like it was done fermenting. So do you think I should just do it again, or?
Once you cold crash it, you might have some more to dump out, but if you've already reduced the amount of yeast in the tank, I think you're going to be pretty safe, but I would go ahead and.
Okay, yeah. Cool. I did a taste test like last week, and it seems like it's the same. So it's seems okay. It's
sure.
It still kind of has, like I was telling you, kind of like that aroma, I guess.
The dairy kind of aroma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the lactic acid itself tends to have a dairy character to it. So a lot of times it's described as like yogurt or slightly soured milk, but without smelling or tasting whatever you have, it's hard to say whether that's what it is or not. But hopefully it's not too overwhelming.
Well, I hope so too. That's what the idea with the cranberry is, kind of maybe mask it.
To mask that a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to say, what could have happened to influence that, through the fermentation.
Have you had that feedback from anyone else, that kind of smell, or is that?
Not that it was that strong. Like you make me feel like it's stronger than it might have been, but like without tasting it, I can't say that. But our sensory panel did note a dairy character to it, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to share. I could show you. I could even email it to you. I'll just do that after this. I'll email you the slide of the. So we have a trained dairy panel that went through this, and I think the intensity on a scale of like 1 to it's probably 5 was like a 2 or 3 on the dairy note. So it wasn't like, it shouldn't be dominating, but
okay. Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what else could have happened, that it's the substrate it's in and the temperature and the particular environment, and it goes a certain direction and produces more of one flavor than another. It's kind of like a yeast in that way too. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'll be all right.
Hope so.
So yeah. Oh, I wish I could taste it to give more insight into it. So.
Yeah, that would be great. But I don't know how I would make that happen. But
well, we should maybe get Darian or Shelly to come down there and taste it too. So I talked to them the other day and told them that you'd tried it out. So
where are they located?
So they should be, I think they're both in Toronto or Guelph. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're both, I don't know which one handles your account, but they're both with BSG.
I think Shelly.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, she might be able to help more. But. And again, your temperature, you did 37°C, or I don't really recall what you did.
99, I think, Fahrenheit.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds about right. You might have been, let's see, 40°C is 104 Fahrenheit, so it sounds like you were just about right. So
yeah.
Anything above like 45, you just end up with no lactic production at all. So the cooler temperatures actually work a little bit better.
Yeah.
And the other thing to keep in mind is that it's not all about pH. pH and the concentration of lactic acid are not linear, so the pH tends to level off in the mid 3s, and even though that's leveled off, you continue to have production of lactic acid, and that concentration gets higher and higher. So the flavor might even be a better indicator than the pH.
Right.
And then you get more experience with it. What I did in the brew pub I worked in is I bought a real simple titration kit. And then, after 24 hours, I would do a titration, and then, try to get an idea in my mind how much longer it was going to take. And then kind of the final 12 hours, I would do more frequent titration. That way I could always hit that same acid concentration every time to make it more repeatable. But what I've started to figure out, though, is as long as I produced my wort the same and did the souring at the same temperature, is once I had that data, it took the same amount of time every time after that. So I started saving myself time and taking fewer measurements. But titration is really the best way to measure what's happening.
Okay.
So, cool. Any other questions?
I mean, for me, I don't know. I always have questions for you. But yeah, I don't know. Not at the moment.
Okay. I would say definitely, even if you don't like that dairy flavor, give it another shot and see if it happens again. But
yeah, we'll definitely be doing another sour of some sort. Yeah, and so that's the thing. It's like with this brew itself, I don't know if we'll be reproducing this exact one or if we'll be doing something different that's a sour. But yeah, so I'll probably, like you said, use kind of the same base recipe, and then after that, we'll see. So
cool. I know a couple times in the past I've used yogurt cultures, and I definitely got dairy notes with those. So that I didn't really care for that much. So I'm suspecting that's what you're noticing, but yeah. But most of the feedback is that it's been very, very clean lactic. So.
Okay. Yeah, I like the flavor it gives.
And the communication from our marketing department, which we're a French company, they say it has a freshness sensation, and I don't really know what that means. So to me, that it's just that it's a crisp, clean flavor, I guess that means. So.
Okay. And you were saying that you might be doing like more sour options, like different blends, or?
Yeah, this is our first for sure. I know that there's something else in development, but we do intend to have some other bacteria options. And I think I was talking about this a little earlier with Danielle. In my mind, what that means is that we can have, I don't know whether it's 2 or 3 or 4 different options, and then the brewer can experiment with blending it in different proportions of those bacteria and potentially be able to create more diverse flavors. Because souring with lactobacillus tends to be kind of, in my mind, one-dimensional. It's it's that citrusy lactic tartness and not a lot of other complexity going on, which is, it's good because you can add flavors, and it's a canvas that you can add other flavors to, dry hops or different fruit additions, you name it. But I think with other bacterias, it could be interesting to try to produce more complex products.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now let's say there's a lot of other things that come along with that lactobacillus, because it's very sensitive. Because it just can't handle it, and then you have very low risk of contamination problems in your cellar because you're typically using hops at that point. So the risk of contamination in the brewery is pretty low. Well, if we release a brevis or something like that, or a patio, or the things that are different with those, so you might have a lot more risk with that. So.
Right.
So.
Okay.
But we'll see. I can't tell you what's coming next.
Right.
But there's always new things in development. So yeah, new bacterias. We plan to have a full portfolio of yeast for low alcohol beer production, and then there's some other strains coming in the near future too.
Okay, cool.
I just never promise a timeline because it always takes 6 months longer than that. So.
Yeah, I'm sure, especially nowadays.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and actually a lot of the stuff has been just intentionally put on hold until next year just because of the COVID situation. Like we did plan on having 100-gram yeast sachets, which would be perfect for the smaller nano brewers, but we just can't do that at this point, so we've delayed it a little bit.
Okay.
So, yeah. Cool. Well, I hope this helps. If you have any other questions, let me know.
And tomorrow, 10:30 for.
So the plan is to play a little short video, and then it'll be me and a colleague here to answer questions afterwards. So.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Cool.
Well, thanks, Tammy and Danielle, and have a good OCBC.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.